Kamala Harris has picked Tim Walz as her running mate, opting for the Minnesota governor as the partner most likely to complement her in a historic and bruising bid for the White House. Walz has been on the shortlist with a string of other Democratic figures seen as broadening Kamala Harris' appeal as she springs into the contest against Donald Trump. So joining us now on the show is Ambassador Joe Keshi, a former Nigerian diplomat and who served in the United States of America. Kamala Harris has picked a moderate called Tim Walz, former congressman, Minnesota governor, former serviceman in America. What do you think Walz will bring to the ticket? In fact, in local donations already, they've raised over $10 million since this announcement was made.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning, sir.
Rufai, I don't know whether you saw the event in Philadelphia yesterday.
Yeah, in Philly, yeah, I saw it.
And in Philly yesterday, and I'm sure you saw Tim Walz when he spoke to the very large crowd that gathered to receive him for the first time, following the nomination. That is what he's going to bring to, to the campaign. Looks to me as if the campaign, the road to the White House or the Democrats now goes to the Midwest. And I think from what we saw yesterday, looks as if, and then the joy, the energization of the base, the happiness of the Democrats is beginning to make the campaign a very interesting one. And as we say in the football parlance, we have a game on our hands.
Do we really have, or do they really have a game on their hands? That's for the Democrats. Some people are saying it's still a bit dicey. Yes, the polls are saying that are in favor of Kamala Harris and on, but even Mr. Walz himself had mentioned the fact that 3 months to go is a tough order. It's a tall order for them. And so do you think that, what kind of race do you think ahead of 3 months, or what magic do you think the Democrats had to pull, introducing one, the first South Asian, first Black American female candidate of a major party, and then two, introducing a new person into the race at this critical time? How well do you think, or what do you think they need to do to ensure that they're able to, capitalize on the gains that they have gotten so far?
Ayo, I'm sure that you understand this better when I say that the Holy Book tells us that sometimes the last shall be the first, to start with. Yes, they are starting late, but actually not too late. Remember when the Democrats were complaining, were very upset, were angry, no, not angry, but were just unhappy that they were going to lose the election. They are no longer in that mood today. They are in a jubilant position. They are very happy about what's happening, to them. When you leave the issue of the polls, I think what we should also begin to look at is the fact that the Trump team has not been able to figure out how to handle the new team they have to deal with. And look, Trump from beginning has always had a very limited vocabulary, and all they have been doing is just picking up, looking for what they're going to use to campaign, to tarnish the image and reputation of both the vice president and her running mate. So what we should look at for at the end of the day, it's the famous statement, is the economy stupid? I think everybody, when the dust settles down, the euphoria settles down, everybody is going to begin to look at the economy, and it's who best, projects what they will do in terms of the economy could likely win the election. But the Harris team has a in my view, it's a far more promising proposition, looking into the future and not into the past. And I think this is catching on very well within the American, political system.
Well, Ambassador, let's take a closer look at Tim Walz, with whom Harris now is going to dance a waltz, hopefully, to November 5. Now, apart from his being progressive, being moderate, and having experienced 12 years in Congress, 2 terms as governor, and all of that. Now, what is that special thing that you think may have recommended him? Considering the fact that over the weekend, up to the last minute. Harris was considering Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. The Auto Workers Union were recommending Andy Beshear. There was also Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona on the list. But then eventually he went and took this rural man who is said to be a progressive and a moderate. Some people say it's because he described J.D. Vance and Trump as these weird people on the other side. That can be the strongest reason. A VP is supposed to strengthen the ticket, not to draw from it in any way.
I think the vice president is looking at regaining, and re-energizing areas where the Democrats have not been doing very well, particularly among some white rural folks in the United States. And so taking someone from the Midwest, somebody with a good credentials, by the way, a former school teacher, a coach, football coach, a hunter, who has a gun, despite the fact that, the gun situation is like in America. Someone who has served in the National Guard, the military more or less. He has a very interesting, background that will appeal to quite a vast or diverse group of people. And above all, he was also a school teacher. And remember when the vice president began her campaign, the first thing she did when she went to Texas was to speak to, the teachers' union. And that's a significant voting population in the United States, indeed anywhere in the world to start with. And so bringing in a teacher, bringing in somebody from the Midwest, who can speak rural American language, the lingo that they understand, who can reach out, to people, outside New York and San Francisco, Washington, and things like that. I think it's a good pick at the end of the day. I was hoping for Shapiro, for example, but it just turned out that the Democratic base itself is happy with the choice. And I think once that, once that is agreed and once everybody can see that he's going to add a lot to the ticket, and he showed it yesterday, at the event in Philadelphia. I think he did very well yesterday, and that was enough to begin to energize the base and to confirm that the vice president has scored a pass mark in the very first decision she has to make as a presidential candidate.
Right. Okay. Real quickly, you've talked about the fact that, it cuts across that Midwest narrative, small-town America person, pretty much grew up in the small town itself and all of that. The question I'd like to ask here is, now that he's been picked, to be able to consolidate on this ticket, where do you think they can take the fight to the Trump camp? Because, yes, there's been some marginal gains as regards numbers in those battleground states, but Trump is still holding his own out. So what do you think they can do to take those, battleground states? Because, and the reason, there's a big because, underlying because here, is that leading up to the 2020 election with Hillary Clinton, national polls and everything was like +5 for Trump. +5 for Hillary Clinton. So it was sure that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election. In fact, the economists had called that Hillary Clinton was going to win. But Trump always has one big crowd called the silent majority crowd that is not always captured on the polling system. And it's that crowd that came through for him when he beat Hillary Clinton. The question is, how can they trump that silent majority crowd? I'm talking about Harris and Walz.
Rufai, I'm not sure that silent majority, you're right to start with, but I'm not sure that silent majority, is as solid as it was 8 years ago. I think that solid majority has weakened. Whether we like to believe it or not, I think it has weakened. And you also know that Hillary Clinton made some tactical errors in terms of her campaign. Throughout the campaign, for example, she did not campaign in Michigan. She took it for granted. Why Trump was going back and forth, Michigan, and why Trump won Michigan to start with. So, but I think that, look, to start with, I think the question really would be, the Democratic campaign is going to get a bounce from this announcement of a vice presidential pick. They're going to get a bounce from the tour that they are planning to do between now and next week leading to the convention. They're going to get a bounce from the convention itself.
All right.
The problem would be the ability to sustain that bounce till election day, which was what Hillary couldn't do, some 8 years ago. So we wait and see what happens. But if they can sustain the bounce to the end, we wait and see.
Well, that's what we do. We'll wait and see. Definitely more updates will be coming up. The new U.S. elections is still in November, 3 months to go. But thank you very much for your time with us today, Ambassador Joe Keshi.